they're looking for their names on the tape. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Selina Robinson, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and it's my honor to be your MC here today. First, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the territory of the Coast Salish people, the Musqueam and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. As the Minister responsible for TransLink and as one of the thousands of people who rely on public transit, I know how important it is to have a transportation system that keeps people moving. And that is why our government's priority is to continue to work in partnership with the Mayor's Council and TransLink on their 10-year vision for transit in Metro Vancouver. And I would like to take a moment now to introduce the speakers for today's announcement. We are joined by the Premier of British Columbia, John Horgan. We have Gordie Hogue, Member of Parliament for Surrey-White Rock. We have Malcolm Brodie, Mayor of Richmond. And we have the TransLink CEO, Kevin Desmond. I would also like to take a moment to just acknowledge my colleague Bowen Ma, our Parliamentary Secretary for TransLink, who could not be here with us today. Bowen is a passionate and well-informed advocate for transit in the Lower Mainland and is doing some exceptional work with TransLink and our local government partners. It is now my pleasure to invite Kevin Desmond up to make today's announcement.
Good morning. Thank you, Minister Robinson, for that kind introduction, and good morning, everyone, and Canada Line team. Thank you for having us here today. I'd like to extend my special welcome to Premier Horgan, MP Gordie Hogue, and Mayor Malcolm Brodie for joining us on this announcement today, which really represents the partnership to make all of the transit improvements happen here in this region. And I'd like to thank as well ProTrans, operator of the Canada Line, for hosting this wonderful event today in this fine facility on a bit of a snowy day. So as soon as we're done, get back to work, guys, and keep the trains running in the snow. TransLink's just wrapped up an absolutely extraordinary year. First and foremost, transit ridership in Metro Vancouver increased by nearly 6% last year, building on significant ridership growth the prior year. We've had back-to-back record years in ridership across the system. Our SkyTrain, our bus system, C-Bus and West Coast Express, there were more than 407 million boardings on our transit system in this region last year. That record-breaking number is 22.5 million more than the prior year. Moreover, and I think very importantly, as an indicator of the success of the transit program here in the Lower Mainland, census data released in November showed that between 2002 and 2016, transit ridership per capita grew by more than 59% in this region, far beyond any other metropolitan region in Canada. With more than 1.2 million residents expected to Metro Vancouver over the next 30 years, we need to be prepared for the future. Our first phase of our transit expansion program, again, thanks to our partners behind me, has gotten us started on that. In 2017, TransLink rolled out the largest single-year transit service increase since the run-up to the 2010 Winter Olympics. For example, since January of last year, we've added about 5% of service to our bus system, a 17% increase on our rail system, both SkyTrain and Canada Line, a 7% increase in our C-Bus service. We're making progress, we're delivering for today, and we are building for the future. An example of that is the Evergreen Line. In fact, Minister Robinson's community, of how big transit investments are paying off. In the Tri-Cities area, served by the Evergreen corridor, as a result of a very strong partnership between the federal government and the province, we've seen a 25% increase in transit ridership during the weekdays and a 50% increase in transit ridership on weekends. Evergreen Line was a game changer for that community. And in fact, the Evergreen Line is helping to fuel the very strong demand for our fine rail network here. In 2017 alone, the Expo Millennium Line saw about a 12% increase in ridership, Canada Line a 6% increase in ridership. The service that we added in 2017 and that we'll continue to add this year and next year will help to meet to continue to meet that demand. But as the region continues to grow, it's absolutely vital that we continue to improve our transit infrastructure. So to that end, this morning, we're here to make a special announcement that will go a long way to improving the convenience and comfort of our rail system for our customers. Phase 1 of the Mayor's 10-year vision, which was adopted in November of 2016, provided for 56 new SkyTrain cars on the Expo and Millennium lines. 28 of those cars, based on executing options for an ongoing contract with our supplier, are scheduled for delivery late this year and into next year. The original plan for the additional 28 cars had set deliveries for, in fact, 2024. But with the very strong demand in our system, the crowding that exists throughout the system, we wanted to make it a priority to get relief for our customers as quickly as possible. So today I'm absolutely thrilled to announce we will improve our SkyTrain system that much faster. We've accelerated the delivery of those additional 28 cars thanks to our partnership with our supplier, Bombardier. Those 28 additional cars are now scheduled for delivery into next year. So by the end of 2019, all 56 of those Expo Millennium cars will be in operation in the system. Now, we're able to do that by accelerating and moving forward some of the federal money that had otherwise been planned for later expenditure. So again, very strong commitment to improving service from the federal government and the province to help us make that happen. And I have more good news, which is why we're here today in the Canada Line operation. We've also recently signed an agreement with Rotem, a division of Hyundai Motor Group, for the procurement of 24 additional Canada Line cars. Those cars will be available for service in 2020 as well. Again, all funded through the first phase of our transit expansion program. So, in 2 short years, the entire system will increase by about 80 cars, a very significant capacity improvement to the SkyTrain network. That means greater comfort and convenience for our customers. They will see the difference during their commutes, where they're experiencing crowding now, and there'll be shorter wait times throughout the system. In fact, we'll see a 10% capacity growth on the Expo line, a 23% growth of capacity on the Millennium line, and up to a 30% growth of capacity on Canada Line. What that means is, during the peak period, we will have space for an additional 8,200 passengers throughout the SkyTrain network per hour. More SkyTrain cars means increased frequency, reducing pass-ups and wait times for our customers. Our customers, during certain portions of the day at certain stations, are often being passed up by overcrowded trains. More people will get a seat, and they will be more comfortable in the system. Comfort and convenience is very important. My adage at TransLink is customer first. That should always be guiding principle in what we're doing, and I think this announcement and helping to accelerate these deliveries is part of that theme. We want our customers to have the absolute best experience possible on our system. Now, I want to close by saying that this announcement would not have been possible without the absolute unprecedented commitment of the federal government. The public transportation infrastructure program was the game-changing catalyst that really started to bring our vision forward, and we thank them for their support. In fact, they're providing 50% of the funding for the program. Similarly, this cannot happen as well without the active, ongoing support of the province, both financially and from a programmatic basis. And I know that there's a very strong commitment from the province to improve transit here in the Lower Mainland. And in closing, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge a couple of representatives from our suppliers, from Bombardier and Hyundai Rotem. Gina Tremblay from Bombardier and J.Y. Jun from Rotem here today to help us with this. So we look forward to working with everyone, folks here from Canada Line, to get these trains running. So without further ado, I'm delighted to turn the microphone over to Premier John Horgan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for that spectacular announcement. And as we all know, as the region grows, we need to ensure that our transit system grows with it. We'll meet our objectives of connecting communities. We'll meet our objectives of making sure people can get home faster. And it'll also reduce our carbon emissions in the region as well. But when we talk about all of the policy benefits of linking communities, about being able to meet our housing challenges by improving density around SkyTrain corridors and transportation corridors, we oftentimes lose sight of, as Kevin said, providing a service for customers. And that's the key part of TransLink's announcement today, is that we're not going to be leaving people behind. With increased capacity on the Millennium and Expo lines, that means more people can be assured they're going to get to work on time. It's good for industry, it's good for business, it's good for commuters, and it's good for families. Now, Kevin also suggested that Phase 1 is well underway, and I want to, again, applaud the federal government for stepping up big time on Phase 1 and working with the province on a 40-40-20 basis for Phase 2. As we look at implementing the Mayor's plan, I again want to give credit to Mayor Brody and the entire regional team who have focused on making the trade-offs internally so that we can have coherent policies that make life better for people right around the region. We're committed as a province to meeting our 40% obligation to Phase 2 of the plan, and we started by taking over the Patella Bridge to make sure that TransLink is not crippled by an overwhelming debt to replace a bridge that's well past its best before date. Budget 2018 has allocated $600 million for that project, and there is also more money allocated for Phase 2 of the Mayor's plan. And all of these numbers, whether it's the number of cars, it's the number of millions that are being invested in transit, we have to always keep at the center of our discussion why we're doing this, and that's for the people of the region. For about 4 years now, there's been a lack of progress on a comprehensive plan. I believe the mayors have worked tirelessly to come up with a plan that works for everybody, whether it's the Tri-Cities, whether it's here in Richmond, the North Shore, or downtown Vancouver. The plan is focused on making life better for people in Metro. They need partners to make that happen. I'm pleased to be one of those partners, and I'm delighted to introduce Gordie Hogue from the federal government and for all of the contributions Gordie made as a colleague of mine in the legislature. My only disappointment is that he hasn't been able to ask me any questions in question period, but I'm sure they would have been softballs anyway. So thanks very much for coming. This is a great day for transit. It's a great day for TransLink, and British Columbia will be better off as a result of this announcement. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And with that introduction, I think I'll take this opportunity to ask you a question.
Shoot.
Is your jump shot any good?
Yes.
Are you still colorblind?
Yes.
Toughest two questions. Direct answers. One of the great advantages of speaking third, and Malcolm, you get to come after this, is that just about everything's been said. So, which is why I obviously had to ask some questions of John. It is my pleasure to be here today on behalf of my colleague, the Honourable Amarjeet Sohi, the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, to celebrate the delivery of the new SkyTrain cars for Canada Expo Millennium Line 3 years earlier than scheduled. We recognize that investing in public transit infrastructure is crucial to the economic development and the growing of the middle class. Making our transit system more efficient with these new SkyTrains will improve commute times, reduce air pollution, create more inclusive communities where everyone has access to public services and to job opportunities. And as the Premier said, it's about livability, it's about engagement, and certainly looking forward to the future and ensuring that we have that ability to make access for everyone. And as a former mayor and a part of the Metro government, about 25 years ago now, I chaired the Transit Committee of Metro. I was also on the Transit Commission. So being able to see these changes come about when we were visualizing what the world might look like is pretty darn exciting. And on a more personal level, I love traveling the 351 from White Rock and getting on to the Canada Line and going downtown where I don't have to pay $30 a day to park. And I get 50. Well, where do you park? I can show you some better places, buddy. I can find some places to park where you're not having to pay 50. I can help you there. So we truly do need to and want to develop inclusive communities where everyone has access to the opportunities to thrive, whether they're seniors, Indigenous Canadians, immigrants living in rural or northern communities. It's about that engagement. It's about that ability to create the social capital that comes when we connect with each other. And certainly this helps us connect with each other, to find each other. To help achieve this, the Government of Canada, as has been mentioned, is investing more than $180 billion in infrastructure over the next 12 years. As we continue to build and strengthen the essential infrastructure communities rely on daily, we now have our sights set on funding far more ambitious, far-reaching projects that will pay dividends for years to come. The funding will use to improve public transit, to support green infrastructure projects, to build community culture and recreation infrastructure, and support projects in northern and rural communities. We are also federally committed to finding innovative ways to address the myriad of challenges that we face. This is why we've launched the Smart Cities Challenge, which encourages all Canadian communities to use data and connected technologies to solve pressing issues and improve the lives of all their residents. From important local projects like the one we're celebrating today to large-scale developments that contribute to smart growth on a national scale, we will continue to build 21st century infrastructure that prepares our communities to meet today's unique challenges and prosper for generations to come. Investments that will make a difference today, both today and for the long term. And it is now my privilege to introduce a real leader in our local community and in Metro Vancouver. Please welcome His Worship, Mayor Malcolm Brodie.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. It's a real honor for me to be here and to speak on behalf of the Mayor's Council, because this is a truly great day for the region, as well as for the hundreds of thousands of people who rely daily upon public transportation. I have to add to that, I don't ever recall a time, and I've been involved with the public transportation now for about 16 or 17 years, I don't ever recall a time when all the parties were so focused on the need for public transportation in order to improve the livability of our cities now and going into the future. And if you look back in the last 50 years, some of the critical decisions that have been made, particularly around Vancouver, some of the critical decisions that have been made involved public transportation and its role in keeping the quality of life very high for the people of our region. So the current expansion of the SkyTrain and the Canada Line fleets was included in the Mayor's Council 10-year vision, which was approved in 2014, and actual rollout started about a year ago. In addition to the increase in the number of buses and the C-Bus and the Handy Dart service, the first phase of the 10-year vision provides significant increase to the service on the Millennium Line and the Expo Line. And if you look here to the Canada Line, the procurement of the 24 new cars scheduled to arrive by 2020 promises to increase service by about 20%. This is a very much needed complement to an extremely popular and often overcrowded service that has served to transform Richmond's downtown centre. And I can tell you that it's not just buses that we're talking about or SkyTrains. What I say is you just have to look to Richmond to see the effect on urban development and redevelopment that a very effective transportation system will have as we have refocused and we're redeveloping our whole downtown core, and it's all based around the Canada Line. So soon, with the addition of all 80 train cars, as well as the increases in the transit services, residents will experience the strong connection between long-term region-wide planning and the kind of tangible changes that make our communities better places in which to live. In creating the 10-year vision, the mayors recognized that we must prepare our transportation network for the arrival of another 1.2 million people and another 600,000 jobs over the next 30 years. This requires smart planning along with sustained investments. So as we move forward, the Mayor's Council and the Province of BC, as well as the federal government, are now working to finalize the remaining funding required to roll out the second phase of that 10-year vision. So, as the consequence, the region is planning to realize the extension of the Millennium Line along Broadway, the construction of light rail in Surrey, as well as new bus service throughout the region. And an example of that would be the new B-Line service that is envisioned, which will travel between Richmond and Metrotown. So to conclude, we are now realizing the kind of transportation investments that will maintain livability and ensure the success of our region for many years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Brody, and thank you to all of our speakers. And as a regular user of transit, using the Evergreen line, I have to tell you, I'm very excited about not having to squish myself into a car at the commercial station that's getting ready to leave. It will be, because there's lots of elbows and armpits and stuff when you're this size. And so I'll be very grateful to have relief, certainly at that station. As I expect, all customers will be very, very relieved to have more room on our existing system. It's clear that enhancing and building reliable transit and transportation infrastructure that meets the needs of people in Metro Vancouver, is a strong priority for all levels of government. For our government's part, I'd like to echo the sentiments of our Premier, that we are working for people, making life more affordable and improving the services that people count on. I know that people in the Lower Mainland have been waiting a long time for a provincial government that cares about their needs. And that's why we are working hard to improve the standard of living for people struggling to get by through affordable housing, better childcare options, and a transportation system that just keeps this region moving. And with Metro Vancouver expecting to grow by 1 million people by 2040, I know that this is just the beginning. Thank you all for being here with us today.
Who do I have here? Jeremy.
It's not TransLink related, but it's for the Premier. Yesterday we heard from your Alberta counterpart describe Andrew Weaver as leader of a 3-member MLA caucus and didn't have much time for what he had to say about what happened yesterday. She also said that BC has blinked following this whole pipeline saga. What's your reaction to those comments?
Well, I respect the Alberta Premier's right to say whatever she wants to say and do whatever she wants to do within the confines of the law. And violating trade agreements by withholding access to her market for BC products is a violation of the law. So I'll take no direction from her on issues around what's right and what's wrong, but I do respect her requirement to stand up for the people of Alberta. My responsibility is to make sure that our government is focused on the things that matter to people. As Minister Robinson said, we've just tabled a budget that invested $1 billion in childcare, $1 billion in housing, two of the key issues in our region. We're talking today about massive expansion over the next number of years of transportation initiatives that will make life better for people in British Columbia. Those are the things that I want to focus on. When it comes to the Trans Mountain Pipeline, when it comes to the transportation of diluted bitumen, I don't think that the Premier of Alberta nor the Prime Minister should take any comfort in the fact that we have now referred the matter to the courts for jurisdictional review. The people of British Columbia feel profoundly about this project, and the depth of concern about it is palatable to anyone who spends any time in the Lower Mainland. So we'll see how things go from here, but we're far from out of the woods on this issue, and I don't say that with any glee. I say it more out of sorrow.
Did BC blink?
Pardon me?
Did BC blink?
If that fits your newscast, it's fine with me. I'm not at all concerned about anything. I'm standing up for the coast, man. I'm going to do what I think is right for British Columbia, and I think British Columbians want me to do that.
Okay, next we have Farah.
Hi, Premier.
Hey.
Hey,
how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I wanted to ask you about something, speaking of transportation projects, that was noticeably absent from the budget, and that's the Massey Tunnel. There are people who are living in Surrey, people in the business community who are concerned that this is not a priority for the BC government and that there isn't really a timeline for when that project or whatever is going to happen to the tunnel will be replaced. What's your response to that, and what is the government's plan for the Massey Tunnel?
Well, as I said in my remarks, our focus is on trying to realize the 10-year plan of the Mayor's Council, and the Mayor's Council did not include a Massey Bridge in their projects. Now, having said that, we have a congestion challenge at the tunnel, and the Minister of Transportation is working on that, looking at other mechanisms to make sure that we can relieve that for the people in the region. But we want to be guided, I want to be guided, by the wisdom and the hard work of the Mayor's Council. And Mayor Brody and others have worked tirelessly to try and find what will work for the region. That's not to say that the Massey replacement is not a high priority, but the Patella Bridge is falling into the Fraser River. We need to replace that. That takes precedence at this time.
Is there kind of a timeline for that at all at this point?
Minister Trevena will be releasing a paper shortly on that.
Okay, we have a question just behind Farah there.
Hi. So I guess this is a TransLink related question, but more cars, does that mean more breakdowns? I mean, there have been some issues in the past.
New cars, less breakdowns.
Yeah. Is that...
Well, certainly that would probably be better directed to Kevin, but what I will say is that the increasing capacity on Millennium and Expo and adding new cars to what is a very popular Canada line is critically important to addressing the capacity challenges. As Kevin said, ridership is up. That's good for the region. That's taking cars off the road. That's reducing our climate impacts. And new cars are 9 times out of 10 going to be more reliable than old cars.
And just before, I guess, maybe if you were going to answer, but you did mention, or there was a mention about some other projects, but so can people still expect to possibly see a Broadway subway line?
Oh, absolutely. I think Mayor Brody made reference to that. The federal government and the provincial government are committed to 40% each participation in the funding of the second phase of the Mayor's plan, which includes LRT in Surrey, increased bus service in the north and through the suburbs, as well as the Broadway extension. Extension, is that the right word? Okay. The Broadway extension. So yeah, no, we're prepared to get going. We're in negotiations now on some of the subtleties where TransLink and the mayors will get their 20% from, and that's ongoing.
Okay, we have a question just to the left of the mic.
Yeah, Premier, I'm from the Steamtown newspaper. Yeah, and a lot of people are frustrated about the Richmond Hospital Foundation. They say this time you didn't put any money on your budget for the upgrade Richmond Hospital. Can you have a timeline to do that? Thank you.
I do, and first of all, I'll say for those who are not familiar with budget documents, governments don't put project-specific information in a budget. They put a global expenditure for capital. We have a very ambitious capital plan, over $14 billion in transportation, schools, and hospitals. And I'm very confident that the people of Richmond will be happy in the weeks ahead about how we're going to proceed on hospital funding right across the province.
Okay, global?
Yeah, the obvious, since we tend to flounder around that a lot, there's a whole pile of snow coming down outside. Yeah. Can anybody talk about...
That's a federal responsibility, I think.
The TransLink there can talk about what sort of things they've done to ensure that this afternoon things are going to go fine. There won't be any closures.
Yeah, we have a very, very comprehensive readiness plan for all manner of our service. On the bus side, we take care of all of our bus loops. We sand. We take care of put down de-icing agents. We encourage all of our customers to go on to our website, our transit alerts, our Twitter feed, Facebook, to get up-to-date information. You need to know before you go. It is snowing. It's going to be sloppy this afternoon. It really does affect the bus routes, particularly. On the rail side, both the Canada Line folks and the folks from SkyTrain spend a lot of time. They have more staff out in the system. Canada Line, in fact, last year, as a result of some of the issues, installed some additional equipment on the Canada Line. We hope to prevent any repeat of last year's situation. So first and foremost, customers should know before you go. Particularly on the bus side, there could be disruptions. We work closely with municipalities to try to make sure that they clear snow and ice over the major snow routes. So just please be prepared before you go out and travel. But we are fully prepared to manage the storm, the snow as best we can.
Just one follow-up. If you do have any areas that shut down the way they've done before, how are you going to resolve them? I mean, what sort of confidence can you give to the public that you'll be on it as far as getting it done in a hurry? Because last time, a couple of hours rather than...
We're on the system 24/7. We have a snow desk set up at our communications center on the bus side, which manages really the adverse weather for the entire system and being in communication. If it's a problem on the roads and then there's snow and ice accumulation on the roads, we're talking to the cities to try to clear the way for the buses to get through. If there were any trouble on the SkyTrain or Canada Line network, our operations folks have extra staff out in the system to get the service up and running as quickly as possible.
Okay, last question we have is CTV. Brianna?
I actually wanted to follow up on that as well, Kevin. We saw so many new things put in place after last winter in terms of these bus socks and then a couple things on the rails as well. Can you tell us, have you had any experience how those are doing? Have you had any chance to really test them in this sort of weather?
Yeah, we've the tire socks have been tested on Burnaby Mountain up to SFU a couple of times. I'm sure we're going to be operating them today. In fact, this is the most significant snow we're probably getting this season. It's a drier kind of snow, so we're going to be very eager to see how well the tire socks work going up to SFU on Burnaby Mountain.
And what about the changes you made to the rail system?
Well, the rail system changes were largely on the Canada Line. They put little switch heaters on the system, and they put covering over the power rail to more or less, we hope, prevent the problems that they experienced last year.
Okay, and Kevin, you're popular. There's one more from Global.
Yeah, just on talking about Burnaby Mountain, Simon Fraser, is there any plans to have it open all day? Because we're hearing that it may actually be closed.
Well, much of that is within the jurisdiction of the city of Burnaby and SFU. So oftentimes they'll go ahead and close off either the road all the way up or portions of the roadway network on SFU. We are in ongoing communications with the folks at SFU. We'll keep the service operating as long as either we can get up and down Burnaby Mountain or as long as they're able to keep the roads clear.
Okay, thank you, everyone.